Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode beep of TBoD Extra Points. Today, we've got a kind of contentious topic to talk about. A few weeks ago, by the time you hear this, Steam, or Valve rather, introduced paid mods and then summarily kind of pulled them from the shelves, so to speak. They were trying something out with Bethesda, whereby the modding community, which is still going strong for that game, was able to essentially put a price tag on the mods, and a certain percentage, so 30% went to Valve, and then the developer could then choose an amount to have from the mod, and then the rest went to the modder themselves. And I think Bethesda chose 45% as the amount that they got. So I thought we could talk about paid mods and the idea behind it, and whether we think it's a good idea or not. I mean, what do you think? Was this a good idea, or do you think that Valve was right to pull it after the uproar that it caused?
Well, I don't think it was the idea itself that caused uproar. I think it was the way they put it into practice. The idea was good, and I think when you look at some of the mods that exist especially for games like Skyrim, the amount of work and effort that people put into those is just unbelievable.
Yeah.
I think it's the Falkreath mod was one of the biggest ones. Added like 30 hours of gameplay and stuff, and
even after been voice acted and
yes, exactly. Yeah. And even after they put in the payment thing, that mod was still free, and like nobody should ever have to work for free. I know these people did it knowing that it was always going to be free, because they had no way to charge for it. So, it was a labour of love more than anything else. But if something like that was to come out and I was to want to get it and bought it for, £8 or whatever, I wouldn't have a problem with that. I wouldn't have a problem with Steam taking a cut. I wouldn't have a problem with Bethesda taking a cut. But I would want the majority of the money. And I think this is sort of the argument that most people had. I would want the majority of the money to go at the guys who put the work in. Yes, obviously, it requires the Skyrim engine, so Bethesda have to have a certain amount of that profit, and it goes through Steam, so Valve have to have a certain amount. But you'd think, maybe 10-15% each tops, rather than taking such a huge share that the modder themselves gets a pittance for each mod that's sold, sort of thing. I think when it comes down to minor little mods, like somebody was talking about the fishing. Somebody had made a fishing mini game in Skyrim, and that was like £9 or something. And it's just like, well, what's the point in doing that? You're only shooting yourself in the foot because less people are going to experience the content that you spent so much time making. So yeah, it's definitely a topic for some debate. But as far as the idea itself goes, I have no problem with that. Like I get loads of mods on City Skylines, and they're all free. And there's a lot of work goes into some of them, but it's on a much smaller scale than what you're looking at with something like Skyrim.
Yeah.
So I think to be buying stuff like that constantly, even if it was just £1 a time, £2 a time, I probably wouldn't bother. But because they're free, I'm quite happy to put them into the game. So I guess I'm not really the best person to ask for this topic, because I haven't really got that much experience with mods and games and stuff. I think Steam Workshop is a fantastic platform, and it makes it so easy. Something like Banished, and City Skylines, it expands the game massively just putting these few little mods in, and makes it an even more enjoyable experience than it was before, sort of thing. So yeah, I do think modders should be given something for their money, for their time rather. But I just don't know how you implement that in a successful fashion.
Yeah, I think it was a great idea. I see where you're coming from with the money, and I certainly can see, why people might have an objection to that. I personally think 30% of Valve is fair. You know, apps on the App Store for Google and Apple, they both take 30%. They're providing the infrastructure, they're providing the platform, they're providing the audience. And I think that's a decent amount to put in there. I think Bethesda probably asked a little bit too much for theirs. Fair enough, it's their IP. That's how people are making the money in the first place. But I really think that that should have been priced a little bit differently. But I don't think that it deserved the reaction it got. I mean, people were saying, you know, obviously that, yeah, the pricing was way off kilter, which I would agree with. But people were also saying that this type of thing, just like, you know, Steam, like Greenlight or early access, where some people were taking advantage of that to get as much money as possible and putting out shit, would happen in the modding community, and it would get ruined. And you know, people were saying that the modding community is all about sharing content with the community for free. Well, I think that it's not like you're sharing it within the community unless you are a dev. You know, the vast majority of people who are downloading these are gamers, and they are getting it for free. That's not sharing, because you're not giving something back. You're literally taking something that someone's made for free and just having it and expecting to get stuff for free. I think that putting in a payment scheme like that is a good option to give a modder. If they want to make things free, which, as you say, one of the biggest ones, it remained free. If they want to keep it free, that's fine. You know, they can still continue as normal. But you know what? For those guys who've put, you know, hundreds of hours into making these mods, and it may be eating into time they could have spent with their family, or time they could have been spending at work, and they've decided, well, actually, you know, this is stopping me, you know, making this mod has kind of slowed me actually being able to put food on my table, and I want to be compensated for that. I think that it's fair enough that people should be at least given the option to charge. They put a donate button in, and, you know, it's a very similar way to how Nexus mods work, where everything's free, but there is a donate button. Of course, there's a donate button there, but how many people are actually going to take the plunge and press that donate button? You know, a paltry amount compared to a compulsory charge for quality mods.
I think the moderation of it was called into question, wasn't it? Because there was an example where somebody had downloaded a mod from the Nexus and then re-uploaded it to Steam and put a price tag on it, so that wasn't their content.
Well, I think he'd used some assets from a free mod and put it in his paid mod. So his mod was a lot bigger than that, but it had some assets from a free mod in there, you know? Yes, and of course those type of things are going to happen, but really putting a price tag on it will allow the cream to rise to the top, in my opinion. I don't think that, you know, it would necessarily ruin the ecosystem if there was the price tag on there. I personally think that Valve were a bit, although, you know, they hadn't worked all the kinks out. I mean, the pricing structure, I think, you know, if it was put into other games, you know, the developer can choose the amount that they ask for. The devs of Race the Sun saw this idea, and they were considering actually releasing a free game and then getting their revenue by encouraging modders to mod the game, you know? It has so much scope to just kind of how, you know, we were talking in a previous EXP about that kind of interaction with the community that Twitch gives you. Having that interaction between, and that kind of trust between modders and the developers kind of brings that relationship a bit closer. If there's a kind of, you know, if they're both making revenue off it. A lot of people, I remember, you know, reading various articles and threads were saying, well, you know, what happens if the game gets updated and suddenly the mod's broken? I think that then falls on, you know, the developer and the modder to make it work again. Simple as that. Like, you know, I think people don't put enough trust in the developer or the modder to actually sort that out, and they're just there to grab the money. Like, people were fixing their mods when an update broke it for free before.
Yeah.
So they're going to feel more, and, you know, that was just a social responsibility rather than a financial one.
And they're going to have more resources as well, presumably, to do that.
Yeah.
If they've got money coming in for them.
Yeah, exactly. I just think that basically the internet shit the bed as usual and ruined a really good idea. Like, the pricing structure may have been bad to begin with, but it could have got better. And, you know, it's up to the dev to price it accordingly. But it should be seen as a platform, not just a source of income. Think of, you know, that guy who got a job at Bungie after making a mod for Skyrim. It was Skyrim, wasn't it?
I'm pretty sure.
Or it was an Elder Scrolls game at least. He got a job at Bungie, right? Because he recognised for the hard work he'd put in. Now, imagine if you're kind of an aspiring games maker and you're doing this for free, but you've got some skills, and you're making a decent amount of money off mods. You could actually then professionally pursue a career in games, whether it be as your own modder.
Who's to say
whether
it wouldn't start? People making their own studios and stuff, you know.
Exactly.
From the money that they made.
Or even getting noticed, as people have, by larger studios and deciding to go that way.
Yeah.
You know, I just think it was such a good opportunity that I think that the internet, i.e. gamers who want stuff for free, kind of were a bit short-sighted to see.
People who fear change.
Yeah, I you know, speaking to a couple of developers we know, you know, they thought it was a good idea. The only people I can see that didn't think it was a good idea were the people who now have to pay for stuff.
Yeah.
God forbid you've got to pay for something, you know?
When you've got that entire Steam library of games that you haven't played as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another topic. I mean, I'm one of those guys myself, but I think the point being that I hope that they do bring it back, because it had so much potential to kind of change the business model of how games are made. You know, suddenly the amateur modder becomes part of the ecosystem of a game in a much more prominent way, and developers have to, you know, cater to that. If they're getting a cut, they'll want to make sure those mods work as best they can, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense. Then they're going to provide further support for modders if it's putting money into their pocket as well.
Yeah, exactly right. Like, I think it can only breed better communication and better quality games, more often updated games, more often updated mods, better quality mods. It'll just make the gaming experience better if people are just paying a few quid for it rather than just getting it for nothing, you know?
So, in conclusion, good idea, poor implementation?
I would say good idea, which had some initial teething problems. It was out for less than a week. I would say that I personally think Bethesda charged too much, took too much of a cut, and that's what's caused the main issue.
Nearly 50% is a lot.
It is a lot. Like, but you know what I mean?
Especially when you consider a good mod can sell a game, you know? Like,
yeah,
somebody like me who has played Skyrim, you know, I did Skyrim to death on the Xbox 360. I've always considered picking it up on PC because of the potential of mods.
Yeah.
You know, and if something came out that was just the most incredible mod, and I was just like, right, I've got to buy Skyrim again, that's money in Bethesda's pocket, you know, at the end of the day, because I want to buy it in order to play a mod. So they're getting money from that front, and if they're getting money from the mod sale as well, you know, it's money for nothing for them, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
How old is it now? How old is Skyrim now? 5, 10?
It must be 4 years
4
now.
years old?
Maybe 3 or 4. It was 11 or 2012, actually, I think, so it might be 3. Right. It might be 2011. I think it's 2012.
I think
no,
it was
2011.
I think it might have been 2010.
No, I think it's 2011 because the release date was 11/11/11.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, it just seems like a bit of a shame. I mean, just before we wrap up, I just had this kind of brief thought, like, DayZ was a free mod, yeah,
Yeah.
And that sold armor like nothing else, right? And, you know, fair dues, he was working for Bohemia,
That's
but on
right.
his own project. Can you imagine if they just charged like a couple of quid for that? Like £2 for it, yeah? Can you imagine how much more money they would have had up front to then work on the standalone,
Yeah.
and how much further forward the standalone would be now,
Right now,
if
yeah,
they
yeah.
just charged £2 for it, if this model had been in place? That's the type of potential it has. Those games that you want to play, like the DayZ standalone, would be fucking finished by now.
There we go. Quim solves it all.
Yeah, again. Anyway, rant over. Let us know what you guys think about paid mods, whether it was a good idea or if you think we're talking shit and you are completely against it. We want to hear either viewpoint, to be honest. If you do think that they were a bad idea, let us know, and let us know why. And, you know, we'd be happy to discuss it on Twitter at TBoD, or again, leave us a comment under this video. Thank you very much for tuning in, and have a pleasant morning, afternoon, evening, or night.
Bye, Z's.